It is what someone does when they're panicking across the board. And the stuff behind the scenes is also panic. They're in negotiation with people. They've been negotiating on stuff for 2 decades, but they don't have anything left to negotiate on now. They're in trouble. So don't make yourself a stupid target. I mean, you can't call yourself a revolutionary and worry about a Holocaust museum. They're also, let me tell you one thing they're worried about. They're worried about a consistent message. They're worried about it. They know that you have a common sense of oppression among non-victims. They've tried to look at how to use that to take out Islam. But the neocons don't know how to do it without getting themselves plowed over, because it's been so bent. They're at the forefront of all the anti-racist stuff. The Hebrews have been at the forefront of non-European immigration in Anglosphere. So how do you bring that out? How do you use this weapon against Islam? Any other time they would just make it racial and plow Islam under, right? Well, they can't go there anymore, or they have a feeling they can't go there, because what does it mean for them? That's an interesting point, isn't it? What does it mean for them if they try to go racial? Well, they just can't do it. They can't do it post-World War II. They draw a line in the sand, so it's like it's a very weird situation. When you have a common sense of oppression among non-victims and someone can articulate that, like I do in talking points, or like Bob does with the mantra, over and over again, they're worried about that. They're worried about something dropping and someone getting a tribunal together and getting them off the street really quickly. That can happen. They're worried about that, probably much more so than they worry about a big hit on a Fortune 500 company or a bunch of CEOs getting killed. You can kill a bunch of CEOs and still be okay. It hurt. It depends on which ones, but I'm just saying that revolutionary acts, that they are worried about a consistent message that articulates that, because they lose power. If you have a consistent message that is working, it doesn't matter whether it's Obama, oh yes we can, the Republicans immediately start losing energy. And of course losing power, it first starts with the loss of an energy flow. And we can dominate the energy flow when it comes to this common sense of oppression among non-victims. We can dominate that energy flow, but it has to start with a consistent message. They are worried about that. They are afraid of that. That's why you haven't heard about someone like Bob Whitaker. They don't want you to know we exist. They don't want that. The reason you haven't heard about Shark Hunters or that book they put out in 2000 exists because they don't want you to know something like that exists. They want you thinking all hope is lost. They want you with your head up your tail. That's what they want, and that's very useful. Here it is. It's useful. It's easy to put people in a consensus trance. I went over demoralization. Most of you have no idea what I told you. I didn't know about demoralization. I had to understand it 2 and 3 times and see it work. It is profound. A consensus trance is profound, but when you go into a group that's been put in a consensus trance by reading the same information, it doesn't matter whether it's white nationalists or whatever. You have to get them out of that. But you're looking for one particular scenario. Those scenarios aren't working. What's going to work right now is a consistent message. Now, I'm not saying if someone went after a high-profile targets or whatever, who knows? I mean, you got a loaded weapon, but I'm not that bill of goods. You're way too overread in that type of thing. A common sense of oppression can be pointed out to in other ways that can be way more damaging to this type of system, because it's what they fear most. They fear it the most for one particular reason. There is no defense against these type of tactics. There's no defense against those talking points I'm giving you. There's no defense against that. Once you pinprick it and once you get the conversation started, we're going to control and dominate the energy flow. Then you can backdoor whatever you want. There's nothing you can't do with a gun that I can't do with a velvet rope and a tribunal. Yeah, I don't have to break any laws. But that's the game now. The game is not Wild Wild West. But I don't know what's going on with these guys thinking they're going to shoot up a Holocaust museum and cause a revolution. They don't have any power. I mean, say what you want to about Timothy McVeigh, but taking out government buildings, it was bad timing in my opinion. It was crazy. It was maniacal. Whatever. It obviously was an act of terror because it didn't cause a revolution. But it was a government building. Taking out the Twin Towers. You know, people say that was a cowardly act. Well, that's pretty ballsy stuff. Taking out World Trade Center in a plane is pretty. I mean, that's heavy duty. It didn't cause a revolution here, but it certainly did deliver a war against someone at someone's doorstep. There could be no doubt about that. But I'm giving you an example. Those are very big scenarios. But running around shooting at security guards, or getting yourself busted for doing something stupid, or saying something when there's, or even just debating, not saying 6 million when it comes to the Jews and going to jail in Germany. You know, we have enough Mandelas. We have enough political prisoners. Don't make yourself a target. Don't get thrown in jail for doing anything stupid. And by no means you're not in a violent type of revolution. But what baffles me about Mr. Von Braun is he knew everything I just said. I mean, he's a smart enough guy to know that. Now, that's what they worry about. They worry about someone like that going after high-profile targets and killing them or something, or shutting things down. And, again, they're worried about what they can't stop. They can stop that. They could use that energy time and time again to their advantage. And that's what they're doing right now, aren't they? Sure, they don't care about stopping them from killing Holocaust security guards. They don't care. That's wonderful. He's dead, and we're going to use that to try to get all our stuff in. But what they do care about is someone being on a consistent message that is grabbing a dominant energy flow that everyone knows is there. The Muslims know it's there. Everyone knows it's there. Everyone's waiting for someone to grab a hold of it and do something with it. They got everyone looking for violent scenarios when in fact that isn't how this type of thing is brought down. The Berlin Wall wasn't brought down through bullets. It was brought down through a consistent message, believe it or not. And some behind the doors wrangling. Yeah, there's a lot of behind the doors wrangling right there. But that's important for you to understand that. They do fear that. I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you they don't. Obviously, if the Pentagon's putting out reports about monkey wrenching or about high-profile hits or something like that by lone wolves, well, obviously they're concerned about it. They're not concerned about Holocaust. They're not concerned about the average white kid getting shot by. They're not concerned about that. That's an ethnic conflict model. That can go all day. You're shooting at an object. You're not shooting at anything with any power. Of course, I'm not the war of the flea, the war of me variety. I'm teaching the basics that are much more deadly to the system. That's a consistent message. A consistent message can take you anywhere you want to go, if the conditions are right, if you have a common sense of oppression. This is weird because you have a common sense of oppression among non-victims. You have everyone trying to figure out how to use this energy, and we know how to use it, don't we? Sure, we can do anything you want to do with it, but you have to first articulate it. It has to first start with a sound or a vibration. Yes, it does. It has to first start with at the basic harmonic level, and that is something I'm going to touch on here as we come into the ending of this particular episode 6. Before I close this off, the sixth MP3, I'd like to talk a little bit more about demoralization. An article came to my attention from Occidental Quarterly, and they're kind of like a think tank for maybe white nationalists or Europeans. I don't have a problem with them or anything else because I figure everything's out there for a reason. Everything to me is always useful. Yeah, people make fun of VDR, or they make fun of this, or I never make fun of anything because everything becomes a ladder for little rabbits to climb up on. What I don't like is when people aren't seeing things in front of their face, or when they're not trying to read everything. When it comes down to something like VDARE, a lot of guys say, well, that's not useful. You don't know anything about propaganda. You don't know what you're doing. Everything's useful. Everything's useful. There are many ways to put out a message. You could put out a message as something subversive and evil, and it actually attract more people than if you put it out like it was on the History Channel, believe it or not. Sometimes you get an article on VDARE that attracts someone, they get on there and they call anything having to do with our race at all, on any level, way, shape, manner, form, can become useful, even if it's backwards. Sure, many ways to put out a message, and maybe you guys didn't go to school for that, but there's many ways to put out a message, believe me. I've been asked time and time again, it's been asked so much that why I'm using a particular different type of language. When you talk about the indigenous white rabbits of Europe, why I'm using language like red hippopotamus, why are my language so unique? Most of you, everyone you're sitting around on a day-to-day basis has been stigmatized. They've been demoralized over a race issue. When you mention race, or when you mention something that comes out on Ameren, like the color of crime or something, when you mention that, they turn it off, don't they? They tune you out. Yeah, they tune you out. Why? They're demoralized. True information does not mean anything to them. I'm going to come back to this point, but the reason I use a unique verbiage or unique language, a language all on my own, a language that I just made up, is because, one, I know what I'm doing. You see, if I sit down at a table and I talk about the indigenous white rabbits of Europe, it seems harmless. Yeah, it seems totally harmless. they're not turned off by that.